Hello and welcome back to Buck the Trend podcast. Steph's cracking up because I went straight into character.
He's like, flick a switch, ready, go. And it's too much. I can't cope with that.
Shall I start that one again then?
No, let's keep rolling.
Oh, let's roll with it.
We're going.
Yeah, welcome back. Episode 7, I think it is now.
Yeah, I'm Steph, you're Matt.
Yep.
Haven't changed names yet.
No, and yeah, should we kick off straight into it?
Yeah, why not?
Cool. Let's go straight in with exciting news. So for those eager people, not eager, great people listening first thing tomorrow, first thing this morning as you're listening.
Thursday morning.
British time. You will only have to wait a few hours until Steph reveals her bike sponsor.
Yeah, so the announcement is, it's either going to be midday or midday. 12:30.
Half past midday?
It's not a thing. Probably 12:30. We're going to be pressing play on the announcement reel, so keep your eyes peeled and please give it some love when it comes out, because this is super exciting for both of us. And we can't wait to share it with you.
Yeah, and a lot of hard work's gone into this, and from a lot of sides, but it's good. It was good to get over the line, and hopefully, looking forward to riding it fast this year and doing it some justice.
Certainly am, and we'll do like a full breakdown of the build and stuff.
Yeah.
When because we've been for a bike fit and everything already, so
there's
so much to share, but we can't share it yet, and we will share it next week. But midday today, announcement-ish is going out.
Yeah, and there's a lot more to come with the bike build and things like that. So
exciting.
Yeah, stay tuned. That's one exciting. Sorry, I'm just moving the mic before it makes a big noise. That's one exciting thing for yourself. What else have we got coming up?
Apologies for those listening if you've just had to turn down Matt's microphone. I have no idea what just happened, but
It went red.
It went really red. So I'm hoping that we've sorted it. I've turned him down a little bit. We've never had readings that high before, so I'm going to keep an eye on it. And apologies if you just went deaf.
Well, if it is that bad, we'll just record the first 2 minutes of the pod.
Yeah, so you may or may not be listening to this tomorrow. We'll see.
What else have we got? So I've got a race coming up, actually. I think 6-7 weeks maybe until. So I'm doing Reading Half Marathon. Steph's looking at our calendar to see how long it is.
Trying to count the days. Ooh.
But I think my Training Peaks potentially said 6 or 7.
I feel like Training Peaks kind of cheats you out of a whole week, doesn't it?
I don't know. I don't really pay too much attention to it. I just put my training in and get on with it.
Oh, it's Happy Poppy Gotcha Day. Our friend's got their rescue dog. They said today is her Gotcha Day anniversary. Sorry, it's on our calendar so I can see it.
We should maybe.
Happy Poppy Gotcha Day. So it's a week before my first race. So I'm pretty sure it's 5 weeks.
Okay. We'll go with 5 weeks. So 5 weeks to get myself fit.
Which you're doing a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit of running. We're now. I did probably my longest run this year, actually. So I've just tickled over 10 kilometres. So it doesn't sound that impressive.
Tickled over 10.
But we've tickled over 10. So.
And while Matt has truly been embracing, essentially doing whatever he fancies as soon as he finishes work, I have been well and truly back into just like normal training. So obviously had the build through the beginning of January, then we were away on camp, and now it's just like business as usual. So nothing particularly crazy other than loads of time inside because weather. I don't know, if you're not in Britain, you just really won't get it. But we don't see the sunshine here.
Yeah, I think we're not limited to the only country to that. I think there's probably quite a few in Europe as well.
Yeah, but it's like, yeah, okay.
Scandinavian countries, I think probably will
Northern Europe, it's a Northern European thing. It's not like we have beautiful, cold, crisp days every day. It's just miserable and grey, and it's cold to the bone. So I do a lot of my training inside to avoid getting ill. And we're kind of in that period now. So I've got a long ride in for tomorrow. It's now forecast to rain all day, which great. Another 3.5 hours inside.
But I will say, I mean, this is such a British thing. We're talking about weather. lighter evenings are coming. It's more like 5:30 now in the evening.
Oh yeah, I went out for a run at 4:00 yesterday afternoon, which was
Yeah.
so fab.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
When it gets dark at 3-4 o'clock, it's a bit depressing, really, isn't it?
Yeah. So we feel like we're getting there. Springtime is on its way. Today felt warmer, but it has been pretty miserable. So I've been doing lots of time inside, which I think adds quite a lot of extra fatigue.
Yeah.
So I find it, if I compare the weeks I was away in Lanzarote, in the sunshine with everything taken care of, with being at home, having the hour and 20-minute commute to and from the pool, and then throw in the fact that like I'm doing a lot of training inside, so there's zero rest on the pedals. Like, you're just pedaling the whole time. Fatigue builds quite quickly.
And if you listen to the podcast previously, I can't remember what episode we spoke about it, but rule of thirds, we've definitely had some good rule of thirds this last couple of weeks.
Yesterday. So I had a day off on Monday, and I really, day offs are super important. You need to be able to properly absorb the training, but my gosh, do I feel horrendous the next day. That I woke up Tuesday morning, got on the bike, messaged Matt about 10 minutes in and was like, this is vile, this is horrible. My heart rate was so high, which is not unusual, but it just felt hard. My legs were still asleep. I couldn't get my sweat rate right. I think that's something else that's training inside at this time of year is really odd, because it's quite humid we've got a dehumidifier that's on constantly, but it gets quite humid. But it's cold, but then you get warm, so you put the fan on and then you're freezing. And there's no kind of middle ground where your body's like, yeah, okay, I'm happy here, I'm self-regulating. So I'll finish and I just won't, my clothes will not be wet. I will not feel like I've sweated. I will have no salt marks. Whereas in the summer, easy rides, I'll probably be sweating quite a lot because it's just the base temperature's a bit warmer, so the fan's actually doing something to cool you down, rather than at the moment, I just feel like I'm a bit of an ice block.
And it can be quite difficult opening the door as well, because the rain just comes in if it is raining then, especially when it's raining sideways.
Flood the gym.
But yeah, it is quite cold. It's hard to get the right sort of temperature.
Yeah, I'm going in a puffer jacket and starting
Coming
training and then coming out with just my bib shorts on because I'm warm. But yeah, so it's been sessions have been fine. I've been able to execute them and I've been feeling better as the day has gone on. And then today, about 55 minutes into my bike, my body was just kind of like, oh yeah, I remember how to do this now. Heart rate dropped by 10. Body temperature came back to normal. I was like, cool. I guess we're back.
So yeah, training's going well. Nothing major to report either way, which is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
We don't want anything stand out right now, and we don't want anything on the opposite end of the spectrum either. So
no, actually, a highlight for me though was my run on Sunday.
Yes.
Had a long run and just loved it.
Yeah.
And was super chilled. Matt was out with me on his bike so that I could have some fluids, and it just
whoa. Good company first.
Oh yeah, great company.
Good vibes.
Made the time pass super fast. Some really good chat. He wasn't playing Christmas songs on his breaks this time, which is excellent. But yeah, it just it flew by, and my efficiency was great. My heart rate was low, RPE was low, speed was really good. I was like, you know what? I'm having a good time today, and that was just that's a nice way to end the week.
Yeah.
So that was fun. Can we go on to the talking point for this week, because it's a really fun one. I think it's quite meaty.
Yeah, let's go. I think it's gonna be quite a big one. So
I get asked so often about mindset.
Yep.
And we thought we'd dedicate some time to it. And this is I guess the one specific question we had was, how has my enjoyments levels, or how have my enjoyments levels changed now that I'm professional and this is my job, compared to when I was an age grouper? And I think this is part of an absolutely enormous conversation, and something that I've been brought into kind of from the moment that I started to recognise it as importance, that happy athletes are fast athletes. And it was something that my sixth form or high school swimming coach used to say when he'd talk to the parents, and he'd be like, don't care how fast they're swimming now, I care how fast they're going to swim in 6 years' time. And happy athletes are fast athletes, so how can we create the environment for them at school where they are happy, they're succeeding at school, and they're also succeeding in the pool? And I think at 17, 18, I was just starting to come to terms with what that actually meant. But as my life has gone on, it's become even more important. And I reflect back on the moments where I was at my best, and it has definitely been when I'm at my happiest. But I think that happiness changes for every different athlete. So for me, happiness is, I think the most important thing is that I need to feel in control. If I feel as though I'm on a hamster wheel spiraling, then it negates everything else that I'm about to say. It just kind of disappears. And then the second point is I need to feel competent and confident. And I think they kind of both fuel each other. So my confidence comes from feeling competent, and competence is fueled by me feeling confident. And all of that kind of ties up together in creating this really robust self-belief. And I think it's not arrogance, and it's not believing that you can do something that is outrageous and unachievable, but it's just like belief in yourself, because if you don't believe in yourself, no one else will. So if I feel in control, and if I feel competent, confident, and with this element of self-belief, but also I just love this. I love being active, and I love having the opportunity to drive towards a goal. So I need to have that focus. That's a thing. And it's one of the reasons that we've picked the Pro Series this year, is because I need to have like a focus that goes beyond, I'm going to turn up to X race. Like I need a journey. We give you my journey, and I need a journey that I know I'm going on. And that kind of long-term focus. We used to work in 4-year cycles. So I'd have a goal for 4 years. So we're just kind of trying to recreate that, where I'm driven for a long period of time. So yeah, if I have this performance focus, competence, confident, and also in control, I'm happy. And therefore, I'm able to race fast. And I actually don't think that has changed at all from when I was an age grouper to now. If anything, it just means that I have more control over my life, which means that I am actually just happier. So I don't feel like there's more pressure, because I just get to dedicate my whole self to something that I love so much.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, having listened to you speak about that. It's kind of opened up how I thought about it when I was training. And I mean, you spoke about 4-year cycles there. Obviously, Olympiad cycles being in Rome, the governing body, I suppose, was the main goal was the Olympics, and that is a 4-year cycle. But yeah, when you talk about the confidence, that's a big thing, because I'm you're playing around with these a lot.
Just ignore me.
The confidence thing is huge, and I think back to when I was performing at my best, and it was absolutely a confidence thing, in terms of when I was confident, I was happy, I was then performing well, and I just saw my performance sort of skyrocket and just keep sort of, the trajectory was kept going up and going forwards. And that was partly, that's the environment, but also the confidence in my ability of where I was at with the training, the confidence in the training. So yeah, that is quite a eye-opening one for me. I hadn't really thought about it until I just listened to you say that. But then in terms of the opposite, when things weren't going well, that's probably my bad trait, is when things aren't going well, I can sometimes find it difficult to find that confidence again.
And I think we can take those moments where things aren't going well, and we have to sit and compare them with when they are going well. Because I've done a lot of work on myself through this. Like Matt, seen me through a period of my life that was incredibly challenging, and it started before Matt and I met. But I started to have anxiety. I had my first anxiety attack when I was about 7, and I remember it. And I'd just been moved up swimming groups, and I was in the deep end, and my friend was in the shallow end, and I just basically freaked out, and I was like, I shouldn't be here. I can't be here. I'm not this good. So they moved me back. And then I didn't have another one until I was in my gap year. And it actually happened in a race. So I was in the water and I was swimming, and I was a backstroker. And I just remember going completely limp. And I didn't have a particularly healthy relationship with swimming by this point, and I hadn't for a long time. Like, there had been an incident when I was 16 where I was fighting for selection for Junior Commonwealth Games and my goggles snapped, and I placed a lot of weight on that incident and the trajectory that it took my career. And for me, it was kind of the start of the end, and I completely fell out of love with the sport, but kept flogging the dead horse for another 3 years. I just remember I was really fighting for a national time, and I hadn't PB'd in this event since that race where my goggles had snapped. So it had been 3 years. I was a 200 backstroker, and I just kept hitting to the 10th of a second the same time. And I just got in the water, and it was literally like I couldn't swim. I was completely limp. I couldn't breathe. It was like breathing through a straw. And so I had a chat with my coach, and we left the event. I didn't do it for 6 months until like about 3 weeks before nationals. So avoidance was the tactic. But when they came back again, and when I was rowing, I couldn't avoid it because it was every time I got on the erg, and then it was every time I was doing paddling out on the water. So I couldn't just completely get rid of the sport that I was doing. So I spent a lot of time trying to understand what it was that was triggering me. And I didn't feel in control because I was existing within a governing body that wasn't set up for me to succeed. And that's not to say it should have been, but I was quite a small rower. I wasn't a lightweight. I was quite light for a heavyweight. And a lot was being asked of me to become an athlete that I just wasn't. So I felt like my life was completely out of my control. I was overeating, but not putting on weight. And was basically constantly having this feedback that I wasn't good enough, I wasn't tall enough, my lactates were too low, my body weight percentage was too low. All of these things I kind of couldn't really do much to control. And that's how I know that control is so important to me, because I felt in the period where I didn't have it, I was definitely at my most vulnerable, and I couldn't build the competence and confidence that I know that I like, because I didn't feel like I had the tools to do so. There was no positive feedback.
Yeah, and I think, like we're talking about what makes a happy athlete, for instance, and that's completely different for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's so circumstantial for each different person. But big thing I'm hearing here is the environment, and whether that's, I personally think, especially within triathlon, and it's so difficult to create, but especially over the long course because it's such an individual sport, but having sort of that squad mentality can sometimes be a really powerful thing. It can go the opposite way as well, and they can become quite toxic places. But I do think you just get something out of, I think as humans, we like to interact, we like to work with people, and I do think you can get a lot out of other people in terms of your training.
100%. And studies show that being a part of that performance environment and creating that performance culture actually benefits everyone within it. And there are so many elements that we miss when we train solo. And I feel that because I've been parts of amazing squads, as have you, through our previous lives. And it just doesn't really exist for us. I'm a long distance triathlete. I have a house. We're set where we are. My coach isn't here. Yes, we are very fortunate actually that we've got at least 7 other professional athletes that live locally to us. So there is some capacity to join each other, but it's not quite the same squad feel. Like you're not spending all day, every day with each other, telling stories, sharing the highs and the lows with each other, because that definitely helps take you out of your own head and give you perspective. Yeah,
and that's where a lot of governing body sports have centralized training programs, whether that's, even triathlon, you look at Olympic distance, you've got Leeds Training Centre, there's Loughborough, there's, I don't know, there's one in probably Scotland is there, or I think it's swimming, but there are bases around, and the same for a lot of Olympic sports. But outside of that, there aren't. In long course, there's probably a few I can think of, don't need to name them all, but there's a few sort of setups, but whether they work and thrive might be another question.
And I think if we go back to the squads that we were all a part of, they were all working towards a common goal. Yeah. So for swimming, it was always about national rankings. For rowing, it was bucks or Henley wins. Like there was a thing that brought everyone together.
Yeah, common goal, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas there isn't really that, like in the professional side, there isn't like a club ranking at Ironman, for example, where if you do really well, you get a bonus as a club. So the drive to be a squad is so much less.
Yeah.
So for those athletes that thrive within environments, you really have to try quite hard to find it. But for me, I don't need, and I think a lot of that comes. I consider myself very introverted, and I will literally come home and hide in a dark room after I've seen a lot of people. I get so tired, and as much as I miss the camaraderie that you get from training with people, and I know that you get a lot from training with people, I think it isn't a determining factor in my happiness, and that's going to make me sound like a massive recluse. And I love people, but my happiness isn't. That's not what I think contributes to me being a happy athlete.
Yeah, and you like to recharge, don't you? So.
Oh, I love a recharge. Matt will sometimes come downstairs and I'm like, no, not right now. I'm here and I'm on my own, and I just
that
need
makes
to be
you
left
sound
alone.
absolutely terrible. So you might want to take that one back.
No, but it's true. Like I do genuinely just need my quiet time sometimes. I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
No.
There can't be anything wrong with that, because that means there's something wrong with me.
Well, that's also
Yeah.
debate for
I
debate.
think there probably is. And yeah, I think there was a risk when I turned professional that we'd see like a relapse to the issues that I was facing when I was rowing. But when so the period between rowing and triathlon was massively transformational for me. I didn't go straight from one sport to the next. I did a lot of work at the back end of my rowing career with a sports psychologist, and then equally in that kind of 8 months before I started triathlon, and certainly in the 2 years before I started taking it seriously, I did some work with some amazing occupational psychologists, just trying to understand my triggers that had come about from rowing and swimming. And one of the most fascinating conversations I have had was about something called survive or strive. And it's basically this idea that as human beings, we are either, okay, so it's always going to be a sliding scale, but either we are hardwired to survive or we're hardwired to strive. And by that, I mean, if you're hardwired to survive, you're quite content with where you are. Like, you are just happy being where you are in life. And that's not necessarily a bad thing at all, by the way. But when I first heard it, I was like, God, that sounds boring. How could someone just be happy with where they are? Like, that sounds ridiculous. This was back in 2019, so give me a break. I was going through a lot. And then the second part with the striving is or you are hardwired to constantly search for more, and to look for more, and to look for better, and to go in search of more happiness, or more speed, more power, more performance, more races, more everything, promotions at work, all that sort of stuff. So either we are hardwired to survive or we're hardwired to strive. And I was like, well, obviously striving. Like, that sounds great. That's how I've lived my entire life. And I got looked in the face and I was told, that is not healthy. And I was like, oh my God. And they were like, actually, the healthiest thing to do is to survive rather than strive for more, because you're not going to burn out. And it was a real, like, oh my God moment for me, because my entire life, the way that I'd lived it was to look for more. But there's a happy medium. And if you can balance the striving, so as athletes, we always want to see more. But if you're able to find the moments to be slow, the moments to stop and reflect, and to literally just survive for a bit and consolidate and be happy with where you are and see progress, you hit the thrive zone. And that is where we exist best as human beings. So we're not constantly searching for more, but we're also not just kind of sat back and content. So the most growth happens when you're able to effectively balance both of them. And that's something that I've been trying to live over the last 12 months, where I'm not world champion, obviously. I've just turned professional. I have got a lot of catching up to do to even be competitive at these top races. It could be so easy to jump on the hamster wheel, start running and not stop, but that will not help me be in the sport for the next 10 years. So I've been building in the moments to just stop, reflect. They are easy weeks in training. They are taking a proper off season. It's not mentally being on every week and just sometimes executing to the bare minimum and being like, you know what, this is good because this is better than it was before.
I think that's you've started to answer the other question we got. I don't know if you saw it. Was about how do you practice your mindset and like what practical things do you do to practice mindset, and there you're talking about how you kind of, I guess I'd say, accept the path to where you want to go, and obviously it's not a case of you get where you want overnight. You've got to have a plan in place, and that plan doesn't happen over days, months, kind of happens over years.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to add to that, the practicing mindset, it's not a thing that you turn on or off. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say there are exercises that I do to practice my mindset.
Yeah.
It's something that I have chosen to develop constantly because I need to, because I know that I have I am likely to get anxious. I know that I have unhealthy perfectionist tendencies that fuel that anxiety. I know that my self-doubt will choose to build if I don't choose to build self-belief. We all have these kind of, I don't know if it's hardwired into us, but our preferred ways of thinking that are the rivers that have kind of marked their paths through our brains, our neurons that are used most effectively and most often, that have happened through our childhood, that it's really hard to undo that learned behavior. So I have to make conscious choices that I know that I am more likely to behave in a certain way. So therefore I need to actively choose daily to behave in a different one. So I think I mentioned a couple of weeks ago about if I'm given a watt range, I'll always hit the higher. And that is because I spent years believing that I wasn't good enough. Therefore, I had to overachieve to prove myself that I was. So we're doing a lot of work now to undo that and just be okay, just executing and just being like, yeah, I'm turning up every day and I'm executing the sessions. They're not all perfect, but that's totally fine. Like, the odd amber session on Training Peaks is not the end of the world.
Yeah, and it's a case of, it's a bit like racing with a sort of what ifs, really. What if this happens? What if I guess a puncture? How do I deal with it? Those type of questions, I guess that kind of comes into sort of the mindset of what if, I don't know, I'm having a bad day. How do I deal with it? Because there are going to be obstacles in the way, and it's how you deal with them. And if you're prepared or have a plan of how you deal with them when you come across them, I think that can probably help. And kind of key sort of links into mindset. Would you agree?
I think, yeah. And I think something that can really help with the what if planning is kind of understanding what I have my 3 levers that I need to pull on in order to feel happy. So having that goal that's the big scary goal, right? Then having this self-belief that I know in myself how to build, and then making sure that I'm in control. And I think that middle one is probably the hardest to sort out because it balances some really complex emotions that we experience as human beings. But if you're able to build your self-belief, you are going to be far more able to deal with stuff going wrong, because our resilience bucket is basically just more full. So it doesn't feel like the world is ending when you get a puncture. You're kind of like, oh, okay, fine, I'll just pump it back on and get on with it. Whereas if you go into that situation feeling really vulnerable, it's so much easier to become the victim and to be like, oh God, no, the world is ending. I've got a puncture. I'm going to lose all this time. I can't do it anymore, And then you start catastrophizing and you kind of disappear off into your own mind. And something that I had to do physically and I'm much more able to do it like metaphorically now, is I create my own belief walls. So when I was rowing, I'm sure my parents have still got it somewhere, I had this A3 piece of paper that I wrote everything on about why I was a good person. And it wasn't just Steph as a good athlete, but it was, why am I a good person? What have I achieved that proves to me that I am a good person and I am worthy? Because I mean, I was not well, and I had this whole belief that I was just not worthy.
And out of interest, because I've never done anything like that, as you can probably imagine, knowing me, but what sort of things would you put in for that? Because I'm trying to think.
So it was everything from, like, I hit the GB standard on the 2K ergo. I finished 5th at trials.
But was it also like life things as well?
Yeah, so this is what I mean. There was the balance of, these are the really tangible things that I have achieved. I got a 2-1 or first class in my master. I can't remember what I got. But, you know, the things that in the moment when you were given the certificate meant a lot to you. But then also the other things, like I mentored other athletes and I've seen them go on to do great things. Or I stopped and helped the woman cross the road. Or I've put a lot of effort into supporting so-and-so to do this. Or I'm panicking now, but like so there are these kind of different levels of achievements. There's a tangible, there's these kind of slightly more intangible emotional things. And then there's the stuff like, I took care of my mum, or, you know, that are like, my mum's not ill, by the way, and that was just a really random example. And Mum, I love you. I'll always take care of you. But you then get into these really emotional things that start to call out the core of who you are. And they are things that so like things that I put on my belief wall, other people might look at and be like, why the hell is that on there? But it's things that I see as being important. So one thing that goes on it now is I travelled to New Zealand on my own. And that for me was a huge kind of turning point in how I viewed myself, because I now know how important that sense of adventure is to me, and travel. And that's why I love this sport, because I get to do that. But it was also massively brave, because I'd just let go of a huge part of my life in the rowing. I had no idea where I was going next. So I got on a plane and I flew 36 hours around the world for 2 months on my own with no plan. And I did it, and it was terrifying, and I cried most of the way there. But I got off the plane and I had the best 2 months ever. And then I came home and it was so fine. The world didn't end. But it's things that when you reflect back, you're like, that calls out to who I am as a person, and I am so proud of it. And it doesn't just have to be the stuff that you've achieved, but it's the way that you've achieved it, the way you've gone about things, that means that you can go on and do something else. So I think there's a lot of who I am that goes onto a belief wall, because I was successful as a swimmer, I was successful as a rower, and I was successful as a rower, even though I didn't see it for a long time. And I'm now successful as a triathlete. Like, there are things in the core of who I am that means that those things have been able to be true.
Yeah. I feel like this has been a bit of a therapy session, maybe for the both of us. I mean, I've done a lot of thinking.
Matt's basically, those that are watching on YouTube, I've never seen him look so thoughtful in my entire life.
Yeah, I've never really dug deep into the sports psychology side of things
I love it
myself, because I've always put up the bloke mentality, I guess, of having the front and just trying to face everything up.
It's really fascinating, because when Matt and I met, I was probably 6 months into this journey in terms of understanding my emotions, my triggers, what was going on with me in the kind of performance sport world. When we met, I hadn't decided to retire, so my aim was still to keep rowing and try and get to Paris and then LA. And that decision came to light over kind of the following couple of months. Matt had decided that you were going to stop, but you were essentially competing on rage, is the only way that I can explain it. Like, there were no other emotions involved other than this, like, need to destroy the people that you were competing against. And it kind of became your undoing as you transitioned out of the sport, because you were so unused to feeling any other sort of emotion at all that it just didn't compute for you. It didn't make sense.
Yeah, it sounds familiar. It did take a while to adjust. I mean, there still is quite a lot of adjusting, but that's for another time. Probably for more of a psychologist to come and talk
I
us
would
through
love
it.
that. This is sharing. I would love for Matt to go and see a psychologist, because I think it helped me so much. And this transition, the transition from sport onwards with life, never really ends. And it has been, I remember the first couple of months I was at work and not doing performance sport, I would come home in floods of tears, and I just couldn't figure out how I was going to fit in this world that didn't really exist. Like, being an athlete is so unique that when you're trying to do life and go to work, and I was working in a business that was run by athletes, so they were people that had been through the transition, even though it was decades earlier, so got it and understood it and created this environment that was so welcoming and open to allow athletes to basically grieve the careers that were over. But I still couldn't figure out how I was supposed to be feeling like that and existing in this world for the next 40 years until I retired. I was like, I can't do this. This is not how I want to live my life. Like, this is nothing works together anymore. Where's my Olympic Games that I'm aiming for? Like, I can't have, people kept talking about having goals. I was like, I can't have goals, because the only goal I cared about was going to the Olympics. So why does it matter if I meet a sales target or not? Like, that doesn't mean anything to me.
Well, luckily for you, you found yourself back into sport.
Yeah, I got myself back. But I think it is underplayed how challenging it is for athletes to go back into the workplace. And I don't think that's something that necessarily gets easier with the length of time that you're out the sport.
No. So, yeah, I think maybe we could get a psychologist on at some point.
I have lots of them in my phone book that I've worked with over the years.
Yeah, I don't have too many.
There is actually, so if anyone is interested and is an athlete that has transitioned, an athlete that is transitioning, or is an athlete that is looking to transition away from sport, please do reach out, because there's an amazing guy called Rick Cockgreave who helped me massively in my first, second, third, God knows how many transitions when I was rowing, transitioning into the workplace, with an athlete support program, and he's setting it back up again. And we have people that, like myself, who were 6 months out the sport, but then we also had other people that were kind of 10 years out the sport that were coming back, and they'd done it like 3 years previously. So genuinely, if there is anyone that is struggling and can't see a way forwards, please do reach out, because we have people that we know can help. And we know how hard it can be. So that was quite a lot of mindset chat, I suppose.
Yeah. Shall we finish it there?
We can do.
Or have you got anything else on?
Well, there was a piece around like managing the highs and lows, and I think we spoke a little bit about the training highs and lows, I suppose, with the rule of thirds. But something that's becoming more of a need and an ask for athletes is living your life in the public sphere.
Yeah.
So I choose what I share on social media. We do not share our whole lives. We probably share much more on this podcast than we do on my Instagram. But it does mean that we are choosing to share the highs and lows of racing, and as much as possible, like we said last week, with the desire to be authentic, we aren't just showing the highlights on Instagram. That does mean that there are highs and lows that do play out through social platforms and in this public sphere, and that could be something as simple as a bad race or a subpar race, or it could be like prolonged periods of anxiety, which do happen. Like, for example, I haven't had, thankfully, a long period of kind of anxiety for a while, but last week I dived in the pool, did 100 easy, went to start my main set. It was like basically like a race simulation type session, and had like it wasn't a panic attack, but very similar, like just went completely floppy. I pushed off the wall and I could barely take a stroke. Like my arms would just not turn. And I don't know why. I don't know what happened. I didn't even have any intrusive thoughts. It was just like a thing. And I was like, okay, so just swam easy, sat on poolside for a bit, and then kind of carried on. But that is stuff that all athletes are dealing with. And if it's any longer than like a day, it does end up leaking through to socials, because it becomes it's part of you and it's who you are, and therefore it kind of shapes what you share. So it is hard.
Yeah, and you often see that a lot with athletes. You can tell when maybe someone's got an injury or something's not quite right, because there just tends to be a lot less posting on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, we're the same for it. It is hard to try and keep telling the story when things aren't going well. It's so easy to do it when things are going well. So I guess it's quite easy when you put two and two together. You can see it from the outside, can't you?
Yeah, and especially now that kind of the socials are becoming part of the job description, it adds to that pressure, which then adds to that kind of stress that you feel, where you're like, oh, I've got to post, I have to post, but I don't want to post because I feel horrible. Why would anyone want to see it? Like, on our announcement tomorrow, I do not want to share the first like 3 seconds of it, because it kills me inside. I'm like, God, and it's then you're like, I'm this serious imposter. I'll just think that people are going to hate me.
Yeah, we had to have a chat earlier. Steph thought it was too cringe, and I said my logic is showing a bit of personality, which I always think is good with athletes. And what I like to see on social media is the personality behind the shutter face, I guess. The people like to know a bit more about the athletes and to know they're human, and to hear the funny stories and the like ups and downs. And I think that is key to telling your story.
It certainly is, but it doesn't make it any easier.
No.
So I think with the managing highs and lows, it is just part of life. I think we do it as best we can, and only ever share what we're comfortable sharing. So sometimes it might be like a couple of weeks ago I wasn't feeling great, or a couple of weeks ago this happened, but that's as much as we're comfortable sharing and comfortable talking about. But we are all just human.
Yeah, and you've got to have the highs or got to have the lows, sorry, to enjoy the highs, right?
Yes, certainly. Just not too many of them.
No, and it's like we always say, it's sport. You can't always be at the top. There's always someone fighting behind you to take your place, wherever that is, from top to bottom. So everyone wants to be better. So it's a constant fight, isn't it?
It certainly is, and I genuinely love it. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't have picked to come back.
No, it'd be boring otherwise, wouldn't it?
Yeah, certainly would be. And I might not tomorrow morning, because my alarm's going off at 5. But I genuinely wake up every morning so excited that this is how I've chosen to live my life.
Yeah,
just maybe not 5 o'clock.
And that goes back to the goal, doesn't it? You've got to have the goal that excites you and makes you a little bit scared, and then you can not enjoy the sessions, but you can see the light at the end of the tunnel with a lot of them.
Yeah, you know why you're doing them.
Yeah, there's a purpose to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think we're happy to call mindset there.
I think so.
And us, like I say, go on to talking of bringing on a specialist in terms of a psychologist or something. We spoke about mindset. That would be quite a good thing to discuss later on at some point. We had a discussion about when we bring on a guest to the show, and we may not stick to it, but I think what could be quite a fun idea is for every 10th episode to potentially try and bring someone on.
It takes the pressure off our terrible organisational skills.
Yes, but we don't know who number 1 will be first, or number 10.
Number 10. Number 1 guest on episode number 10, which we probably should sort quite soon, because that is quite soon.
Yeah, whoever comes on will be number 1 guest.
Yeah, you can get a t-shirt with number 1 on it.
got a couple lined up, but maybe send us a message. What would you like to hear, or what type of, because we've got a few ideas of what we think we'd like to hear, and sort of topics we could put together from everything from, like we've just spoken about, mindset, injuries, battling back from injuries, how top level athletes go about it.
Media. I mean, there's so many. The world is its oyster. We can get other athletes on. We can get other triathletes, other athletes from different sports.
Coaches, yeah.
So many options. So we've almost got too many options, and we are terrible at making decisions. So if you've got anything burning that you're like, actually, I want to hear from this person, or I want to hear from this kind of field, let us know, and we'll see what we can do.
Yeah, you want to hear less of our voice and more of someone else, let us know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so there was that one. Do we want to go on to What the Buck?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
I think so. We've got 2 contenders this week.
Yes.
Well, we got Talking Point and then probably the What the Buck.
Yeah, okay. Well, I don't even know which one was which, but I'd like to go... I'm going to go straight in because I don't even know which one you're going to say. But my What the Buck moment of the week is Geraint Thomas's retirement, or announcing his retirement.
Yes.
Purely because I'm biased because I'm Welsh.
Oh, but we all love G.
Yeah, I think everyone does love G. So, yeah, Geraint Thomas is retiring, or said he's retiring after his, I think, 19th year of professional road racing. I mean, he's done it all. He's Olympic gold medalist, isn't he, I think, on the track.
He's also probably got more metal than collarbone at this point.
Yeah, that's true. He's also, Tour de France champion, 2nd place and 3rd place. So he's got the whole...
Got a whole lot. He's got a couple of other races under his belt too. And I'm going to be so sad to see him go because Peloton will just... I mean, it's sad when G's not racing because he does, like... It just adds personality. It's kind of like Luke Rowe going, we love their podcast, What's Occurring. They're people that we grew up with racing and now they're gone. And that's... Well, they're not gone yet. They will be going, which is quite sad.
So, yeah, we've got a few more races to see first. But Tour of Britain, I think, is his potentially last race in September. And I think, well, my dad rang me earlier and said he was cycling, or the race potentially is Bristol or Bath area.
That'd be quite cool.
Or one of the stages, sorry. I'd imagine they'll do a stage in Wales as well for G. Be nice if it was in Cardiff, but I don't think it sounds like it's going to be. But it would be good, if we can get down to there, maybe...
Write to the Tour of Britain organisers. Tell them that they have to put it where we are.
Yeah, I think it's the start of September. So yeah, I think
we
should...
may or may not be around. I'm not sure.
I'll make sure I'm around. Steph can
okay.
Go and race somewhere.
I'll go and race. Matt's going to stay here and watch G cycle past our house.
So yeah, that was number 1. So yeah, well done to G. It'll be sad without him.
It certainly will.
But talking of which, topic point. I'm sure he's mentioned previously on I listened to his podcast, and it was probably a few years ago now. But he did mention he'd like to do an Ironman, especially Ironman Wales.
Well, there we go.
Which would be incredible to see his bike leg.
It would be pretty disgusting, wouldn't it?
You'd like to think.
Oh, would it? I mean, that'd be. I don't know how good is he as a swimmer? Do you reckon?
I don't know. I think he'd get by.
Yeah, he's going to get out of the water, but he's going to have to fight through everyone if he's not a good swimmer. That's going to slow you down on your bike leg.
But he could eat 180k for breakfast.
Yeah.
On a TT bike.
And then run a marathon. Why do we do this? It's an insane sport. Okay, so talking about the length of the Ironman leg, we used to live in Henley-on-Thames, and for anyone that doesn't know where Henley-on-Thames is or live in the UK, this is going to be completely irrelevant. But the distance from Henley-on-Thames to Cardiff is 180 kilometres. How absolutely absurd is that? Because we used to have to drive from Henley-on-Thames to Cardiff. And I remember every time we got in the car, I'd be like, why on earth do I choose to race a bike this far and then run a marathon at the end?
But I wouldn't advise getting on the M4 and going 180 kilometres.
No. It's, yeah.
The M4 is a big motorway in the UK.
Don't do it direct. Yeah. No, don't actually do that. I just mean in terms of the distance.
Yeah, it's a long way.
It is a really long way. So shout out to everyone that does Ironmans. We're all hardcore.
Yeah.
Good job, guys.
Why not?
Yeah, why not? Go and get signed up. They're super cool. I would love to see that. And if G doesn't cross the finish line with a crown on his head, then the world is over. He needs a cape and a crown. A
helmet first, crown on top.
No, the finish line, the run.
Oh,
on
sorry.
an Ironman. If he's doing an Ironman, he needs to be given...
I thought you meant on his bike.
No. If he's crossing the finish line of an Ironman on his bike, he's done it very wrong.
Okay, number 2 was... I can't remember his name. Ugandan fella.
He broke the men's half marathon world record.
Yes, ran, what was it, 56 minutes.
Yeah, which is absurd. Like, that's 2 minute 40 kilometers per kilometer.
240, 241 kilometers, which
That is insanely fast.
we had a chat about this, and during lockdown with some friends, I decided, well, we had a challenge to run a mile as fast as we could or something. So we picked running down a hill essentially, and I mean, we probably picked a hill too steep because it probably didn't really help that much. It kind of more hindered. But I think I ran a 320 kilometer down that hill, which, I mean, he ran 40 seconds quicker than that, 21 and a bit
0.1 times,
which is disgusting.
It's so fast.
Like, if for anyone who hasn't run, well,
It's faster than most treadmills go.
Yeah, probably. But yeah, just try and even do, I don't know, even 100 meters at 240 kilometer pace.
Yeah, so literally, he ran over 21 kilometers an hour because he ran 21 kilometers in less than an hour. So it was probably close to 22.5 kilometers an hour. That's not bad cycling speed.
No. And yeah, I mean, I think he ran his fastest 10k within that.
Oh my god.
Which kind of says it all. Which, yeah, kind of says he had a good Weetabix for breakfast is all I'm going to say.
Yeah, so insanely fast, but G does get the what the butt moment of the week.
Yeah, perfect.
I want to go to bed, so I think it's time that we wrap up this podcast, and that's going to be completely out of context for everyone listening to this tomorrow morning. Keep your eyes peeled for midday. It is a really exciting day for both of us, and we would really, really appreciate all of the love on the post when you see it go live. And we're really looking forward to sharing some more with you. Yeah, so feel free to engage with it, and we look forward to reading the comments. We can't wait. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. As usual, please like or give a good 5-star review on Spotify would really help. Yeah, pop a comment, ask any questions, and then subscribe away as well. Always appreciated. We'll catch you next week. Bye. Bye.